Welcome to a very special edition of the Mental Space Live. Now, this is the first episode in our amazing new campaign, Tear Away the Silence, where we want to have a series of conversations where we overcome the barriers that stop people talking about mental health. Future episodes will concentrate on decoding depression and anxiety. We'll be looking at the link between nutrition, fitness, and mental health. And we'll be looking at mental health for women and for men. This is the first episode, as I say, in the series, which has been kindly supported by Viatris. And we are recording live at Lamo Bistro Del Mar in front of an invited audience. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. Joining us on stage today are three amazing speakers. My first guest, Dr. Nahida Nayaz Ahmed, who is the Chief Medical Officer of Sakina, which is the mental health platform which has been launched by Pure Health and aligns very strongly to Abu Dhabi's mental health strategy. My second guest is the world-famous therapist, Marisa Peer, the founder and creator of Rapid Transformational Therapy and the I Am Enough movement. And I'm delighted to say that both Dr. Nahida and Marisa are judges of this year's Mental Awards 2024. And of course, on our last guest is May Sayed Ali, an inspiring motivational talker who has touched thousands with her posts, particularly on social media, sharing very human stories and a very human perspective around mental health. Today's episode will be focusing on mental health in the workplace. This is October, this is World Mental Health Month, and the theme of this year is prioritizing mental health in the workplace. So, with that said, Marisa, Naya, May, thank you very much for joining us on the Mental Space Live.
Thank you for having us.
So I'm going to start with you, if I may, Dr. Nahida. So, Dr. Nahida, we've been seeing many things happen in the UAE. Just this year, we've had the UAE mental health law come into effect, which makes it illegal for employees to discriminate against employees with mental health issues. We've seen the launch of Sakina, the Pure Health platform, and we've also seen Dubai Health Authority launch the mental wealth framework. So it feels like we've got gathering momentum behind the conversation and the importance of mental health from a government level, that we should thrive from both a mental perspective and a physical perspective. Do you want to give us your overview of the direction of travel here in the UAE?
Thank you. So the initiatives that have emerged out this year, be it the mental health law or launch of Sakina or the Dubai's mental health strategy, these have been in the process of being built up for the last several years, even pre-COVID for that matter. The Department of Health came up with this strategy. It all started with the assessment of the deficits and the gaps that were existing in the current infrastructure. And from there on, they carried on to build a very holistic model of care that addresses every aspect of a journey for mental health. Now, why has this been an issue globally, for that matter, is because people are coming to realize that mental health plays a significant role in healthcare overall. So if you have an individual who is accessing healthcare without addressing mental health issues, the rate of readmissions is high, the outcomes of their medical and the surgical treatments is poor. Their mental health and unaddressed mental health in workplace has its own repercussions. People are dropping out of workforce or not being productive enough. There's a lot of issues with absenteeism and lack of productivity for big corporates and organizations. So overall, in every sector of the community, you can see the ill effects of mental health from not having access to mental health treatment, just culminating into lots of losses. And hence, I think globally as well as regionally, there's been this surge to start addressing, to be more proactive, to be more prepared rather than be reactive, which used to be the trend before. Where we are heading from now, you will see a lot more initiatives come up. So one of the things that as a government we are focused on is building that whole pathway. So we start all from awareness, promotion, education, improving mental health literacy, because as you know, there used to be a lot of stigma. There are lots of misconceptions when it comes to mental health. Following that, evidence-based care, high-quality care, access to care. This is what we at Sakina try to do through primary care integration. So we are like the gatekeeper model where mental health would be addressed right at the beginning of the healthcare services. And followed by that is the rehabilitation and reintegration, where people would have an opportunity for functional recovery. So it's been proven that it's not enough or sufficient if an individual is given access to treatment or symptoms are under control without an opportunity to go back into workforce or go back to providing to their families. So what the government and what all the different initiatives here are focused on that whole journey to make sure that this individual finishes the treatment and has an opportunity to go back and reintegrate. So inshallah, with the next year, there'll be a lot more initiatives, not just in terms of these 3 pillars, but also bringing in some really cutting edge technology, some innovative ideas into mental health realm.
Marisa, we have a tradition on the Mental Space podcast where we often ask individuals, what does mental health mean to them? You and Dr. Nahida have been pouring through some of the entries in this year's Mental Awards. So I really wanted to come to you more on an organizational level and ask kind of the same question, which is, what does good look like to you inside organizations? What does mental health mean for organizations?
So a good company would say, how can I meet all the needs of my employees? Can they feel they've got something that gives them meaning and purpose? Do they feel they're contributing? Because we think we're modern people, but we're not really. We're very primal people. We have the same needs as cavemen. We need to belong. We need to feel significant. We need to feel safe. So if a good company would be okay, I'm a team leader and I see this person in my team that isn't thriving. I see this person that can't speak up. And I'm going to start working on the causes of mental health. It's that I don't feel worthy. I haven't got a voice. I don't know how to speak up. I don't know how to follow my heart's desire. I'm scared of failing. I'm scared of being rejected. I'm scared of speaking up. So good is, let's stop treating the symptom and look at the cause of the symptom. You know, we have an epidemic of depressed kids because they're on their screens all the time. You know, our primary need in life is to find connection. And if you're working on the screen, you're actually finding disconnection. And we're getting replaced by robots. And we're creating an epidemic of disconnection. That's what we have to fix. You know, if you get up and go, I feel I belong, I like my job, I'm doing something that matters, I feel significant, you're probably not going to get depressed. And even if you are, you can cope with it. So we have to stop making it a dirty word, but really look at what is causing it. Why have we got this epidemic of people who are so sad, so unfulfilled, and so disconnected? And what can we do about it? Anyway, that's what I think.
So, Matt, I'll come to you. So Marisa there talking about, the fact that we need to be able to speak about this more. Dr. Nahida also talked about the stigma. The whole DNA of our campaign here is tear away the silence. You've been sharing your stories and you've been sharing with the people that follow you, just in kind of like the human side of what's been going on with you. Why do you think it's important to tear away the silence? Marisa, I'll ask you to pass that up for through.
So basically, Scott, when the whole social media platform happened, I was a public speaker and I was completely uncomfortable with going on social media because I was worried about the whole judgment. Then I started showing the best picture of me on stage, looking perfect, all these things. It got me nowhere. So with my business, it was fine, but reaching people's hearts, it didn't work. Then one producer came to me and she was like, May, we want to see you, the real, authentic person. People connect with the person, share your stories, share your failures, share how you made it through. And I'm like, okay, it was very uncomfortable. The more authentic I was, the more I shared the pain, the failure, what I've been through. I just realized I'm extremely normal, nothing special. Everybody is going through the same thing. Some people talk about it, they speak up, and some people don't. I realized I've been depressed. I realized I've been through so much pain and many other people's the same. But in the work environment, what happens is that we are scared to share. Because if we share, especially, let's say, it's getting much better in the Middle Eastern world, but still, there is a stigma to mental health. And if you look at it, many of us, we don't have to go through depression, but many of us has been through sadness, through pain. And if you remember, Scott, when you called me about the whole podcast, I'm like, what? I'm not okay mentally right now. I'm not okay. There's a war in my country. How will I talk about the well-being? But reality is, I'm here because I'm showing resilience. I'm able to show up. Yes, I am going through pain. I am sad. but I am managing to work around it. I have, let's say there's the bank account. I have this emotional bank of resilience that I've been working on for years to manage to show up and then go back to my own cocoon and go through things. So I've learned this through my work, through mentors, through doctors, through my psychologists. I've done that. I always tell my, followers, or when I go on stage, I tell people, share how you're feeling. Talk to somebody at work that you can be vulnerable with. You don't have to be vulnerable with the world. You don't have to share with everybody, like, I'm depressed, I'm not feeling well. But you have to have one person at work that you can trust, that you can go back to. You have to create the support system, or otherwise we cannot go through it on your own. So this is why I felt sharing my stories, and as long as I respect my culture, the background, my family, my parents, whatever I'm able to share is to be able to connect and tell people we are not alone. We all go through it.
Amazing. Marisa, I'm going to come to you with a question in two parts, because often you talk about empowerment and you're the founder of the I Am Enough movement. So when you look at self-talk, why is it important for organizations to sort of address the self-talk, the insecurity of their employees? But then also, because I know you work with a lot of CEOs, I know you work with a lot of leaders, why is it equally as important, or perhaps more important, for leaders to lean into that examination, their self-talk? Because how does that show up in organizations when you've got very insecure leaders?
So the way we feel about everything comes down to two very simple things: the pictures we make in our head and the words we say to ourselves. So often I'll have a leader who says, I don't have any coping skills. I worked with a woman recently who said, I can't do this because I'm not a man. I'm leading a team of all men. I'm a woman and I'm falling apart. And I said, but the person who gave you the job must have believed in you and seen something in you. So we always want to go back and say, what are the pictures you're making in your head? What are the words you're saying? You're saying, I can't cope. But if you said, I have phenomenal coping skills, and I was working actually in a psychiatric clinic where they had this group and all they go around and goes, I like butterflies, I like cats. I went, no. Let's all say, I have phenomenal coping skills. I have extraordinary coping skills. I have amazing coping skills. And because they began to say that over and over again, they were changing the pictures and words. So we want to make it simple. People don't understand about the frontal lobe cortex and this neural pathway that doesn't, they want to say, oh, I feel bad because I'm giving myself the wrong words and pictures. And if I'm doing it, I can change it. A simple shift. I can't cope. I have amazing coping skills. I'm worried you might not like my speech. Actually, I've got a great speech. I've got something to say. And I find at that level, working with leaders, is they can also go down and say, darling, that's giving yourself the wrong images. You're going on stage going, oh my God, what if I go blank and I open my mouth? I don't know what to say. But what if you're amazing? So I think leaders have to make it very simple. You can look at your team and say, that person isn't thriving. Let me talk to them. Not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you? What happened to you today that made you feel you couldn't speak, or you couldn't sell, or you couldn't contribute? I was working with a pilot who said, I fight with my wife for custody. I get on a plane, I've got 500 people behind me, and I'm freaking out because I'm not equipped to fly with this mental health issue because my wife is horrible to me. And what would help is say, when you're flying the plane, you can say the words narrow down and you can do your job and you can park all that emotion, but you have to believe you can do that, because our feelings are the most real thing we have. And helping people believe, I can get through this, this too will pass. I am depressed or sad or anxious or learn you're rejected. We have to stop making people think they're fragile, because human beings are powerful beyond belief. Just that little shift of, I could change those pictures. I'm not exhausted. I'm just tired. I'm not falling apart. I need a bit of sleep. I'm not losing it and falling to pieces. I'm just having a challenging situation. If we can just make simple shifts as leaders that we can pass down, we find that the people below us can also make those simple shifts. And we've got to stop saying, I'm falling apart. I'm dying, I'm stressed out, this is making me go insane, this client is making me go crazy. I have to go, no, stop all of that. This client is a challenge. This is a situation, but you're resilient and you have phenomenal coping skills. So it really comes down to language, because you have your thoughts. And your thoughts dictate your feelings, and your feelings dictate your behavior, which you justify because you go back to the thought. So before we change the behavior, we need to go right to the top and say, let's look at the thinking that's causing this behavior. Like people say to me, how can you speak? I could never do that. But, you know, I love it. I find it exciting and thrilling. If I found it terrifying, I get a different job. Or maybe I go back and think, I'm thinking a thought. I'm terrified. I might go blank. Now I feel anxious. And the behavior is, well, I'm getting an ulcer now, so I can't even do speaking anymore. So it's thoughts dictate feelings, feelings dictate behaviors and actions. And we want to go back and start at the thinking. What are you thinking that's making you feel so awful? Nobody likes me. How do you know that? Well, I never go out. Well, then how do you know no one likes you if you never go out? Because I'm looking for love and I can't. But where are you looking? I would go to yoga. With who? Well, all my girlfriends. Any men there? No. Oh, so you're not actually looking for love at all because you're going to a yoga class where there's no men. So sometimes it's simple. I'm alone. You know, I had an advice on the right to me, I'm so lonely. What are you doing about it? What do you mean? Well, I'm not doing anything. Well, that's why you're lonely. Offer to walk someone's dog. Go to the local hair salon just so you can talk. You know, connection is a choice. If you are not choosing connection, you're choosing disconnection. So we have to show people, you've got this thought, I'm lonely, and I've got an action, which is I stay in the house because I'm lonely. But how about saying, I could choose to do something just a little bit. I could talk to my neighbor. I could do something. So that's the empowerment. It's a thought, a feeling, a behavior. Let's change the thought. Just a simple thought. I can talk to people. They're not rejecting me. I'm rejecting me by sitting at home worrying about the fact that I'm so lonely. So empowering is, you can change they're your thoughts and you can change them. And if you change your thoughts, you change your feelings. If you change your feelings, you change your actions. If you wake up and think, I'm not enough, which 80% of us do, the feeling you feel is, well, I feel frustrated, I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel resentful. And the action is no action. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to go for that promotion because I'm not enough. If you take out the not and go, I am enough, I'm good enough, worthy enough, you feel brave, you feel motivated, you feel ready to take risks. And the behavior is, I'm going to go for that promotion. I'm going to get that pair. I'm going to ask that person out. I'm going to talk to someone. You always want to flip the thought. Our thoughts are ours to change and upgrade, and empowering yourself starts with empowering your thoughts. I can't becomes I can. I'm anxious becomes I'm excited because the brain can't tell the difference anyway. I'm not prepared, I'm ready. We help people feel empowered by thinking better thoughts, not sometimes, but all the time. And it's so simple and it's free and it really, really works. And that's what we should be putting into schools and businesses. You know, can we help people upgrade their thinking? And then you'll have a workforce that's productive and never wants to leave because they know they're making a difference.
I want to bring Dr. Nahida in on that one. Thank you, Marisa. There's some powerful thoughts there for us all to reflect on. Dr. Nahida, we see the direction of travel from the public sector. We see the government initiatives. Why do you think the private sector is lagging? What do you think the private sector can do? Building on Marisa just talking there about creating these spaces where people are empowered and can actually speak out. From your perspective, what is it you want to see from the private sector?
If we were to talk about the private sector mental health providers, I feel there is a momentum there too, but maybe not at the extent of the government. But there has been some, a lot of initiatives have been taken up by the private sector because the fact remains that we will never have enough mental health providers. Yeah. The kind of surge that we are looking at, the kind of issues that are coming into our faces, especially with the youth being so vulnerable, the whole culture of safetyism, going back to what Marisa said, the lack of resilience, the geopolitical situations, the secondary trauma, it's huge. It's an endless list of challenges that come your way for mental health. And it calls for a lot of resilience. So while the private sector is, empowering themselves with a lot of manpower, upskilling and bringing experts from around the world to fill in the gaps, I think beyond the healthcare sector itself, be it private or public or corporates or any workplace for that matter, there's a huge opportunity there as well. Because again, going back to what my colleagues have said here, it's about creating that culture of connectedness. As human beings, we've evolved by being together, by taking care of each other. This whole shift into being secluded and being online, being virtually connected, is actually causing that disconnect, is actually making us far more vulnerable to make those meaningful changes. If I have to quote, there's a wonderful study that was done in California, and it's a TED Talk as well by Dr. McGonigal. And she studied people on high-profile, high-risk jobs over the time for 10 years. These are individuals who are first responders to emergency doctors, to nurses working in ERs, firefighters, etc. So they have studied them for their blood markers, their physical health, their mental health, etc. over a period of a decade. Towards the end of the study, they tried to collect the data on to see who did better physically, psychologically, physiologically, etc. And individuals who succumbed to having more chronic diseases, more poor health outcomes, were the ones who added that narrative in their questionnaire that says, my job is stressful. Whereas there were individuals in that same cohort who said, I love my job, I get a kick out of it, I can't wait to go and get that rush. And those were the ones who survived to have no chronic diseases. And these are the ones who found meaningful and purposeful connections with their jobs and their colleagues. So to build that culture in a workplace is very important, especially now that we are facing this huge, surge of mental health challenges coming our way. We have to watch out for each other. We have to create that safe space where we can talk about our vulnerability. Like, how many times in a day you ask a person, how are you? And how many times they pause to say how they are actually? They always say we're fine, but that's not always true. So making that a habit, at least in your tiny cubicles, your teams, you don't have to be a leader to propagate that culture. You could do it for your team members. You could do it for your subordinates and people who sit around you and spend the rest of the day at work, to create that culture of expressing vulnerability and knowing that there is somebody to have your back.
Mate, I can see you nodding vigorously while Dr. Nahida is talking there about that, that importance of being able to share vulnerability. What would your message be to the corporate sector? What would your message be to leaders about how important it is to be able to enable that kind of conversation inside the office walls or the organizational walls? Marisa.
Actually, what's happening when Marisa and the doctor were talking about the feeling of I'm excited, I'm happy, and we talk about the vulnerability, it reminded me of the organizations I worked for. And I was laughing because I just realized the organization that didn't care for the employees, many of them left or they weren't loyal at all. And you could see they're on their desk, but they're not really doing real work. And organizations that work for that genuinely leaders cared for their employees. I remember how we had a beautiful culture, and things change over time. The same organization has changed because of politics, things happen. But I remember very well, one of the leaders, international organization, told me, just to go back, I was pregnant with my second child. And I was like, when I was working in the organization, I felt like invisible. This boss would never look at me. I mean, I'm not there. As soon as I delivered, I went on the stage, delivered a huge event for them. I became something again. So it was never about me as a person. It's about what I'm providing to the company. And when you feel you're only good with what you're giving, not as a whole, you will lose loyalty to the company. This company offered me to stay with them and become the Middle East representative. And I rejected. There was a part of me, my ego really wanted to stay. And I'm like, I'm going to be really well known in the organization, the tech industry. But I'm like, it's not for me. It's not for me as a whole. So this is where it comes that you can be vulnerable with the right people. If the organization is not giving you the space to be honest, to be authentic, it's really hard. But also, I would say, there is a responsibility on the individuals themselves. We can't always blame the leaders. We can't always say, because we're not living in a perfect world, Scott. We're not going to have the best organization. We also have to take responsibility. I create my support system. I don't find at work, I can't leave my job right now. I have my psychologist. I don't have that. I have my mentor. I don't have that. I have my faith and my connection with God. So there's always something within us that we need to work on to be able to have the right vibration and the energy around us. That's a combination of organization, but also our vulnerability and our willing to work on ourselves and to change, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm going to bring you in, Marisa, to follow on from that. But also, if you turn to some practical advice for organizations and for employees, as May said, there's a responsibility on the employee and there's a responsibility on the employer. Could you give us some practical advice for employers or employees when they walk through the door? What should that self-talk be? And then if you are the boss, if you are the leader, what can you do to encourage that kind of culture?
One of our human needs is certainty. You know, from the minute we're born, we have a driving need for certainty. I'm going to be okay. And we're now living in an uncertain world with a perma-crisis going on. And I was just talking to a company last week, giving that very lecture. How can you be the certainty in an uncertain world? There's only one answer. In an uncertain world, you must be the certainty you crave. And how do you do that? You go, well, I'm the same mother, I'm the same father, I'm the same parent. Can I create certainty? Which may sound almost unrealistic, but you can. So one of the things we must do for our staff when they come in, especially from that situation, you know, my parents are in Lebanon and I'm so anxious about them, is can you be the certainty? Can you show up and meet your needs? Because a lot of our issues come from unmet needs, and our needs are very simple. We need to feel safe, but that means safe to express ourselves and safe to have a job. We need to feel connected, we need to feel significant, and we need to feel that we matter. And a great company can go, well, these are needs. Why don't I put them on a board and look at them every day? How can I give my team connection, significance, safety? What can I do? How can I make my staff feel seen and heard? How can I give them certainty? Because when you have certainty, I'm always going to have this job, I'm always going to have this relationship, you feel better, you have better coping skills. So it's really going back again, what are humans' needs? They're very simple. They need to feel safe, connected, significant, loved. Well, you don't have to get the loved at work, but the other three, a great team can do that. They can say, okay, what can I do here? We also need to be seen and heard and have someone proud of us and be celebrated. But the first four are the really important ones. And so we're always pairing it back to what's really going on, or what's happening to people. As you say, when we were tribal people, we always felt connected and significant because we knew who we are and where we came from. And now we don't. We live in a multicultural society. We work from home. We don't have anyone to talk to. We get Deliveroo and Uber and never speak to a soul. And we're feeling disconnected and insignificant. And that kind of breaks people's hearts. But a good company can say, well, let me go back to grassroots. Can I have away days? Can I have business lunches? Can I get mentors for these younger members of staff that don't feel significant or connected or even safe to express themselves? And also the basis of all friendships is we choose people who share our vulnerabilities. My hardest clients want to go, I'm perfect. I'm a perfect boss. Look at me. I look perfect. And they're the loneliest, unhappiest people in the world because they cannot let themselves be vulnerable. But vulnerability is a gift. We like people who are vulnerable. We connect with people. So bosses who by nature say, I can't go to the bar with my staff, or I can't go for lunch because I'm the boss and I have to have this air and I might have to fire them, are actually really suffering because they're so disconnected and they're scared of being vulnerable. But actually like people who are vulnerable. We bond and get people who can say, oh, you know, I've got this issue or this fear or this worry. So when you say to people, you know, vulnerability makes you attractive and desirable. We all like the dog with a wonky ear and the cat with a funny little grin and the person who says, well, I'm not quite perfect. You know, we're flawed people. And all our life we're going to have flawed relationships with flawed people. I call it being flawsome. The best you can ever be is a flawed person having a flawed relationship with a flawed person. That's a good thing. It's great to be flawed. And the worst thing is I'm a perfect person. I'm not having perfect because I can't find another perfect person to be with because it's all fake. I'm pretending to be perfect. So what can a company do to make you feel connected, significant, and safe to express. You can do a lot. You can have workshops, you can have drop-ins, you can have a place where anybody can go, a private room, and talk about their feelings. Because your feelings are the most real thing you will ever have in your life. And your feelings are always trying to help you. And feelings are either in or out. And they cause much more pain when they're in. And when you can say, I feel this today. I feel anxious, upset. I feel disconnected. I feel overlooked. I feel that no one listens to me. Even expressing that. I do something called 888, which is called be aware of your feelings, accept them, and then articulate them. People say, I don't even know what they are. When I feel a feeling, I go and eat something, or I buy something, or I drink something. But you have to go back to these 3 A's. I'm aware that I'm feeling furiously jealous of my colleague. I'm going to accept it. And then I'm going to say it, maybe not to them, but today I feel jealous. This person got a promotion and I didn't. What's wrong with me? And as long as you can have them out and have a place to go and say, I know this is ridiculous, but it's like saying being diabetic is ridiculous. If you feel it, that's the most real thing you have. Your feelings are there to help you, guide you. No one says, oh, I feel scared of standing on a ledge really high without a protection, because that's like, well, that's protecting you from falling. But feeling anxious, feeling undervalued, feeling betrayed, feeling let down, feeling you don't matter, are as real as the feeling of when I go stand on the edge, I think I might fall, so I pull back. Your feelings are there to help you. And you must feel the feeling until it no longer requires to be felt. So a great gift is to go, what am I feeling today? Maybe it's unreasonable, but I feel it. I feel resentful of my boss, but I can say that to myself, because if you say it, it actually goes away. But if you try and ignore it or Netflix it or Krispy Kreme donut it, it's going to come back. So remember your feelings, you're going to feel them until they're no longer required. And just say it. Today I feel furious with my husband. I could quite happily leave him. But if I say it, I'm actually not going to act on it. And actually I've worked with a lot of prisoners and they don't even know what they feel. They're so disconnected. They won't say, I feel rage. They keep it all bottled in until they explode. But being able to talk about their feelings and say them without being judged or being told, well, that's silly. You shouldn't feel that. It's like saying you shouldn't feel hungry. Well, but you do feel it. We have to, as companies, allow our staff to feel all their feelings and have a safe place to go and say, I know this is crazy, but this is how I feel. And it often isn't crazy. Because our feelings are coming back to the basics. I'm scared of being rejected. I'm scared of being a fraud. I'm scared I won't be good at this job. I'm scared you won't like me. And when you can do a lot more praise and help people, there's always a safe place to talk about their thing, no matter how crazy they are, then they'll feel safe, they'll feel better, and they'll be very valuable employees. And you'll feel better because you're doing a great job of listening and saying, oh, yes, I understand that. So many of my clients will come in and say, I feel I just need to eat all the time, or I feel I've got to work really hard and I've got to show up. And I go, darling, your real feeling is you don't feel good enough. That's the real feeling. So let's treat the real thing because you are enough and you're allowed to fail. So it does come back to having these skill sets of listening, identifying what's going on, but also having a solution. Just listening on itself isn't quite enough. You must be able to offer a solution.
I want to bring Dr. Nahida in here as well. Amazing thoughts. Marisa there talking also about the importance of feeling safe. Just to almost go back to where we started, because time is against us. I could carry on this conversation literally for the next 48 hours. We started talking about the UAE mental health law. How much is that about making people feel safe? Because it's now illegal for employers to discriminate against an employee who is struggling with mental health issues. So I just perhaps one last thought on that before we bring the session to a close.
Thank you. And this is very much needed. The law has been long overdue, and I know colleagues who've worked so hard in, to bring in all the elements of people who are suffering with mental illnesses and their rights and their privileges and their dignity into the law. So really a privilege for me as a psychiatry provider who's seen patients struggle from bias or from persecution because of mental illness. This law is very protective. Now, having said that, irrespective of the law or not, I think we have an obligation upon us to promote the culture of safe spaces everywhere, across the board. And that doesn't come with just, you cannot impose it. It has to be a cultural change. The simplest thing we can do, you don't have to go to yoga classes. It's not a one size fits all. You cannot give an EAP program for 2,000 plus employees and say, this is your wellness check. It doesn't work. The simplest thing that we could do, and the most basic and fundamental thing for people to feel safe, is to provide kindness. And that is like just going back to the basics, teaching people to be kind to each other, like rephrasing their words, rephrasing their attitude towards each other. And I strongly believe empathy is not something you're born with. Yes, all human beings are inherently empathic, but you can provide those skills. You can rebuild and reconstruct those skills to be empathetic towards your colleagues, your peers, your the places you work at. So I think going forward, the best way we save the whole mental health issues, and again, I feel just obliged to highlight here mental health. When we talk about there's mental wellness and then there is mental illness. Illness are clinical, diagnosed, evidence-based issues that require treatment. So there's no harm in taking treatment. There's no harm to be on SSRIs, on antidepressants if you're a clinically depressed person. Because I've seen lives turn around. People who are on the verge of suicidality have given. Feeling sad should not be confused to being depressed. Feeling fearful should not be confused to debilitating generalized anxiety that requires care and intervention. So, and making that accommodation to adjust those individuals that disability. I can tell you from my own examples, oftentimes today, the problem of burnout is not from the quantity of the work, it's the quality. When we are assigning wrong tasks to people are not given their due promotions or their due acknowledgements, or they are asked to do things that don't belong to them, or one member or a couple members of the team are carrying the whole team's work for them. That is what's culminating into worsening of mental health. But I've seen when I've given my patients, let's say, medical reports to bring down their working hours or ease their deadlines, just those small minor modifications in their tasks, they have thrived. People love to work. We've taken up the jobs and the occupation, the professions we are in because we have a passion for it. We need to feed the passion, not drain it out.
So this is grossly unfair of me, but as time has tied, and this has been an amazing conversation, I just want to come to each of you and in 60 seconds, if possible, just tell me what gives you hope, particularly as we tear away the silence around this conversation. And I'm going to send the mic down to the far end. We'll start with May, then come to you, Marisa, and then finally with you, Dr. Nahida.
What gives me hope is I've been around lots of people who are really kind. I've got great support. When I'm in the most, the times where I was really going through a lot of pain, God have sent me someone to lift me up. So I believe that the kindness still exists. As a human being, we still care for each other. We just have to look in the right places. We also have to look into our souls. And the more connected we are, like we said in a summary, to people, to our loved ones, to the ones that care, when we are vulnerable with the right people, that also gives hope. Because when you share and you feel, you kind of feel pure again and feel more comfortable to be yourself. And another thing I know for a fact, when I was young, I started working when I was 17 years old in the UAE. And I told my family when my father got bankrupt, I told them I'm going to be able to support the family. And nobody believed in me because they're like, you're a child, you're a baby. You cannot do anything yet. And I was able to support. And I always like to remind myself, the 40 years old, oops, I said it. The 40 years old May, you were able to do something when you're only 17. We can still do it. So hope is really, really important for each and every one of us, and we can find inside of us.
Amazing. Marisa.
What gives me hope are two things. Mental health is not a dirty word. We have Lily Allen singing that song, you mess with my mental health, you made me feel so bad. And so the mental health for the next generation, they just use it. Oh, that's affected my mental health. My mental health isn't so good. And they feel free to say that word. Where their grandparents could never have said it because there's a stigma. So that gives me tremendous hope that the word is used and it's recognized that mental health is just as important as physical health. The other thing that gives me real hope is how much work we're putting into the school system here with children who say, oh, I've got a cheerleader who believes in me when no one else does. And all therapists, I think, would love to put themselves out of business by making the next generation not need it. But the generation coming up, they have a problem of isolation because they're always on their screens, but they also are much more aware that it's okay to say, I feel sad, I feel alone, I'm not good at drama or English. And the hope for me is there's so much out there, so many YouTube talks, so many tutorials that are free all over the internet. So we can say, I feel sad, I'm good, but oh, look at this person, and what did they do? And there's help. There is so much help.
I found
all the
you.
bad stuff.
I found you on YouTube, so it works.
And I found you. So for all the bad stuff the internet does, it's a free tutorial for life. You can say, wow. I mean, I do lots of, people write to me and go, you know, I heard you speak and I started to say, I'm enough. And one person wrote me, I wanted to jump off my balcony. I don't know what you did, but within 3 days, I stopped feeling suicidal. I said, I'm enough. And I went out and I got a job. And it was those 3 words, because the common issue that causes most of our problems is I'm not enough. So many ways to feel not enough. But if you can flip that to I'm enough, I'm worthy enough, I'm good enough, I'm interesting enough, I'm attractive enough, just the way I am. You can even imagine Billy Joel singing it to you. It all helps. If you can begin to say that, you're actually giving yourself a different thought. You're doing what's called neuroplasticity. So what gives me hope is how many people say, you know, I have all these braces, I'm enough. I now say it. I don't just say it, I state it. I affirm it, I embody it. And it's not what I do, it's who I am. So it's seeing small children really and saying, I'm going to teach this to my parents. I'm going to teach my mum this. My mum could do with this. In fact, somebody recently said, my kid came and said, Mum, you need to think a better thought. She's saying, oh, I'm falling apart here and I'm going insane. She went, Mummy, that's not true. You're not going insane. You need to think better thoughts. So I love it that small kids get it. And I'm passing that on. Imagine saying to your kid, you need to think a better thought. You know, many years ago, I was late to pick up my daughter, who was only 5, and the teacher said, oh my God, I've been so put in my place. I said to your daughter, Mummy's hopeless. She went, my mummy's not hopeless, she's late. You're not your behavior, you know. And I loved that at 5, she said, you're not your behavior. Smart people do silly things. Good people do mean things. You're not your behavior. Imagine if every kid could get that message. And so we don't say, you're an idiot. You say, you're a smart kid and you did something silly. You're a good kid, but you did something mean to your brother. We don't say you're mean, you're bad, you're stupid, you're dumb. We say you're great, but you did something unkind. And that's not you, but it is your behavior, and you can change it. So the labels have to change, and it has to start with parents, actually, because then we go to work and go, yeah, I'm not good at timekeeping. I've got other gifts. I'm amazing at IT. Instead of having to be perfect at everything, we can say, I'm enough. Because you're only supposed to be good at one thing. You're here to find your gift, perfect your gift, and then take your gift out to the world.
I love it.
And we can all do that.
Dr. Nahida, the mic drop moment for you.
Thank you. A couple things, to be honest, and especially from the space that I work in and the perspective that I bring. I think the biggest hope, and I'm really fond of this, is the fact that we live in UAE and the leadership here. There is profound support when it comes to mental health, when it comes to innovation, when it comes to doing better. I mean, I am leading one of the largest mental health network as we speak, and it's, you know, I can't even imagine how much of enthusiasm there is at a leadership level for us to do better, for us to make community of UAE a safe space for people who want to come here, build their homes and live happily. So that whole drawing of that infrastructure, building that community, the safe space, is not happening at organization or healthcare sector. It's happening at a country level. And that really gives me a lot of hope. And second thing, my kids, they're Gen Zs. And I think they are moral police. They love to be, you know, right all the time. They are so, you know, particular about their biases. Did you know ableism is a thing? So now they keep talking to me about mental health and how ableism is coming in picture, about disability versus ability, sexism, racism, everything that, you know, it's on top of their radar. So I see this whole generation growing up to be accommodating, kind, empathic to an extent that we've never seen before. So I think those are my 2 most hopeful aspects.
Amazing. I genuinely could carry on this conversation for hours and hours. ladies and gentlemen of the audience here listening to this recording, I hope we have been enough for you. Please give me a round of applause for our amazing speakers. And to you out there who've tuned in, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, because we'll be going to be bringing you more conversations as well in the Tear Away the Silence campaign. So we've got 4 amazing episodes to come in. If you're watching on YouTube, the button is literally just there. It takes a second for you to hit it, but it helps us more than you know. Once again, thank you for joining us on the Mental Space Live.
Thank you.